Hey, I'm JR Lay. Welcome back to another episode of the Level Up Business Podcast. In this episode, we are going to explore, we're going to go into the future of health, longevity, and really performance, and how all of that's going to impact us as growth-minded entrepreneurs. But first, speaking about the future, I'd like to invite you to get a copy of my best-selling book, Banking on Change. It is the leader's guide, it is the entrepreneur's guide to unlocking and achieving exponential growth in the age of AI. Text me 832-240-1922, and I will text you a copy so that you can level up your mind, you can level up your marketing, you can level up your sales, so most importantly, you can level up your business and your life. Now, joining me for today's conversation is Reagan Archibald. He is the founder of East West Health, where he is a leader in peptide therapy, functional medicine, and regenerative health that is powered by the body operating system. Reagan is also the author of 9 books, including The Peptide Blueprint, An Ageless Future, as well as host of the Unreasonable Health podcast. Welcome to the show, Reagan. It is good to share time with you today, buddy.
So good to be here with you, and thanks for being on Unreasonable Health.
Well, thank you for having me.
Popular show.
Thank you for having me. And, you know, if I think about everything that has transpired since then for you, for me, for both of us, what is going well to start this conversation off on a high positive note? What's good in your life right now, personally, professionally?
Oh man, well, personally, my kids are all out of the house, so my wife and I are empty nesters, and we're just rekindling our relationship and reframing it, and it's actually been really fun. It hasn't been easy, and I miss having the kids here. So there's like this deficit almost. You'll know when your kids leave, you'll feel it, but at the same time, it's now we can create a bigger future together. So that's personal.
Well, I like the way you said that we're reframing and rekindling, and we're looking to create something even bigger than what we had before. Yes, it's different, but it's a new horizon. It's a new opportunity. So that's personally. What about professionally?
Well, we're traveling a lot. I've been asked to speak at more events, like twice as many that I could actually handle. And we just came off of a big longevity retreat for the YPO group, Young Presidents Organization. So we work primarily with entrepreneurs, and we were able to help about 135 of them, like just really get some baseline metrics on their health. We were doing carotid artery scans. I think we saved at least one life because we determined that in his carotid artery scan right there that night, we're like, you've got an 85% occlusion at least. We need to send you in. And so, it's never a good thing to know, but it's so much better to know before you're in an ambulance. And so, that was a big win.
What sent you down this path? Because, I think that's such a beautiful testament of the work that you're doing. You're giving people a second chance before they even know that they have that. You're providing clarity into the unseen. How did you get to this place to begin with in the first place? Why, I guess maybe a better question, thinking about investment, why invest your energy here?
Well, one of the reasons is I've always had this internal knowingness that the body can heal itself. Like it's just always been present with me. And part of that was, it's through suffering. I had a surgery on both of my feet when I was a teenager, and I read a book. My dad gave me this book called Inner Athlete by Dan Millman. And Dan Millman was an Olympic trampolinist. He's a very well-known author, and there's a movie that, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. But reading that book, I recognized that he was capturing this truth that I always knew existed, which is your mind can control the energy in your body. The energy can help control the healing capabilities, and it can also lead to optimization. So the only way I could get out of farm work is I had to make the football team or the basketball team or the track team. And genetically, I'm not gifted, so I had to work really hard. But what I realized is even when I was doing farm work, I could go through the plays in my head. And so I became really good athlete in high school, really strong, and fastest sprinter in school. I could bench press more than anybody. And you've seen me, I'm a small guy. And if you look at my genes, I'm a bench warmer at best. Like my genes are not framed for me to be athletic. But I learned how to be athletic just by understanding the power of visualization. And so I said, you know what, no matter where someone is in life, I think I can help them improve in their health. And so I've just been obsessed with finding the things that help move the needle better than anything else can in the shortest amount of time possible without risking future health.
I really appreciate the perspective of transforming suffering or pain into power, and then using that to go help others continue to elevate and level up. Because a lot of those who watch and listen to this podcast, they are high performing entrepreneurs, and they tend to sacrifice their health and their well-being for their business, for financial gain, but then it eventually catches up. And
Yeah.
what do you see, because you work with entrepreneurs as well, when it comes to the mistakes that they make with their health?
Overwhelm and anxiety and entrepreneurs feeling more isolated is what leads to really poor health. You know, you and I are in Strategic Coach together, and it's just a great community where we intermingle with like-minded people. We become friends with kind of the outcasts in society in large part because we think so differently. But what I see is entrepreneurs, we fool ourselves into thinking that our health is as good as it's going to be, or thinking that it can wait until we're finished with this next project. And it's like, okay, this quarter I didn't really hit my health goals. It's going to be next quarter. I was reading one of my clients' lab work, and I'm talking to him, and I'm said, well, so what do you do for work? And he's like, oh, I'm a software developer, and I just sold my company. In fact, I just got the wire for $32 million. And so I don't know what my next step is. I'm just like, I'm free. I'm a free human. And I said, that must be amazing. And you just got the wire. Why are you meeting with me? And he's like, you know what, Reagan, I don't even care. Like, I feel nothing. He said, you're more excited than I am about my accomplishment, but I've lost my wife. He was divorced. He's like, my kids hate me. I'm 60 pounds overweight, and I don't really know what my future looks like. And the money is fine, but I don't really know what I'm going to do with it anyways. And he had ran out of future because he was so focused on this one thing, which is let's accumulate wealth and let's stack up the money. And when he got it, he realized that was not the game that he wanted to play. His soul was talking to him. And when I looked at his testosterone levels were 128. And so just for frame of reference, a man's testosterone at his age, like he was in his late 40s, you want your testosterone up in the 900s, maybe 1100 if you're really pushing it. And at 128, he had no dopamine, he had no modulation, he had no reward for the work that he was doing. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, they work really hard and they don't ever feel a sense of accomplishment.
Let's pause on that for a bit, because that's actually something that has come up in a few conversations on this podcast recently. I think about Chris Walker. He was talking about he hit 20 million and he just was like, I don't really feel anything. Now you were talking about the soul. Like you just went into a much deeper level there. And Chris and I went into this space as well. Where is that mind, body, spirit connection? What's the intersection there when it comes to really helping an entrepreneur see new opportunity, new potential, new future? Because to your point, a danger is running out of future, running out of runway.
Yeah, well, I think the intersection is this very cool emotion called love. And neuroscientists, we can now track where that region exists in the brain and where the connection point is. And I think that's fine, but for those of you who are skeptical of love, but that intersection is, loving yourself first and foremost, and loving the fact that you have this deeper calling, this destiny. And that's the intersection, because once you love yourself, then you won't abuse yourself, because when you have yourself as your own boss, you are a damn slave driver. And I know you are, JR. I know I am to myself. And so, but when I sit back and I say, all right, I need to show myself a little more grace, a little more love, a little more flexibility, that's when the magic comes out. And that's when the team feels it. And that's when everything goes better. Even when it's not going good, you're like, doesn't matter. This is about love. It's about nothing more.
That point of loving yourself, do you see that's a challenge for entrepreneurs? Is that like an innate, like, because I'll be the first one to raise my hand, like, listen, true. This was my goal this year. I literally wrote this down as one of my goals for 2025. I want to love myself fully like God loves me. Because I've always struggled in that area.
Wow. And that, if that's your goal, how do you define how God loves you? What was your thought process around that?
Unconditional, with all of the scars, all of the past, pain, failures, struggles, like all of that. I have probably been too critical on myself about that. You know what? Those were just lessons that I learned that I can take forward and make me an even better human being, make me an even better soul for that matter. That it's what you mentioned before. You're doing what you're doing because of pain, your pain. And I think that's where I'm also looking to, and maybe being honest as well. I have not been very good historically, I would say up to maybe about a year or two ago, of being fully honest with myself about things going on, avoidance, pushing things away, resistance. So I would say it's the unconditional of the, and it was funny because last year, one of my goals was to really do a lot of shadow work, and root out some of or maybe surface some of the things that I didn't want to see, but I can see them. And I'm like, hey, I love you, and be able to mean that.
There's a great book, Kamal Ravikant, How to Love Yourself. Have you read that?
I have not. I'm actually Googling that now.
And I loved your book, Banking on Change, by the way. There's so many profound, I mean, the thing I love about it is you bring in some of the ancient wisdom, and you also apply it to AI. But, the thing about the book, How to Love Yourself, is it's kind of the teaching. If you go back to any philosophy in Eastern medicine, Eastern religion, they don't talk about that acronym love, but they do talk about this feeling of oneness. And really that's what love is. It's like when you look at your kids, like there's just like there's nothing but absolute love for them. But you love them enough where you're going to correct some of their behaviors. You're going to talk to them in a way that is instructive, and you're going to help warn them. And so it's not like love is like, oh, let's just like open up your heart and you just have to sit there with that feeling. Love actually is the most action oriented emotion that a human can have. And I think that's where people, we're entrepreneurs, I see them with their health, and they, at the end of the day, what's underneath it all? Why is somebody walking around with an extra 50 pounds on their belly? Why are these entrepreneurs who have all the resources in the world, why aren't they taking care of their mental health? Why don't they sleep well? How come they have these cardiovascular diseases? Why are they showing up with cancer? They have the resources, but at the foundational piece is they don't have the love. They have not realized just how powerful their body is and how powerful it can be if they transform that, because love is outside of the brain. It's in the heart. We have 3 core energy centers, and we can all feel it. We have our brain that connects to our heart, and then we have our brain and heart that connects to our gut.
Yes.
And so if you lose touch with that wisdom, and in the Eastern culture, they call it the 3 treasures. So you have your Jing, you have your Shen, and you have your Qi. So you have this energy generation in your body, and that energy generation, if you have your Jing is your destiny. That's the part of your soul that, in Eastern philosophy, the Big Dipper, if you look up at the Big Dipper, that star at the top of the Big Dipper, that's where your destiny gets dumped into your kidneys, and it's this vesicle, and that's the wisdom in your gut that you feel. And if you're tapped into that, and if you don't deplete that when you're, like I talked about soul earlier, but if you're not tapped into what your destiny is in life and that purpose, and if you say, okay, my destiny, my purpose is I'm going to do a roll up and get a big paycheck. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to make sure that it's aligned with that deeper mission of what your Jing is. And then the Shen is the personality where you portray it. Like, you've got really good Shen. That's why you and I, we connected right when I met you. I'm like, I love this dude because he looks in my eyes. He's very alert. He's attentive, but he's concerned about me, not just himself. So that's that harmony between those three energy systems that entrepreneurs, when they leave that behind, nothing can be meaningful. And we work on the physiological aspects of things so that they can start getting reconnected with their psychological state.
Oh my gosh. Like, there's so many ways like we can take this conversation at this point. I want to just pause and ponder a bit, because you mentioned something about the gut. I want to come back to that because it's just in my field of vision. Wisdom. What's your take on wisdom? Because you mentioned the ancient wisdom and the ancient truths that have withstood time. And as we're entering into this new period, this age of AI, I'm not sure if the majority of people are aware at the potential opportunities, but then also what is happening. So for example, like we think about large language models and how large language models are commoditizing quote unquote knowledge. And I'm like, well, I think the opportunity specifically for entrepreneurs who are working from a place of meaning and purpose is to unlock the wisdom that they have, the unique wisdom that is uniquely theirs through their lived, their learned, their shared experiences, and then to be able to effectively communicate that out into the world. And you have done that. You've got the 9 books, you've got the podcast. You mentioned you're getting invited to speak and to share and inspire others on stage more. Where does wisdom play into the gut? Because I thought that was a very unique frame and a unique perspective of how you unpack that there.
Well, and I appreciate that. I think wisdom, if you just look at it, it's where you have applied knowledge, and you wrote about this in Banking on Change, but it's applied knowledge in looking for the leveraged activities that are going to be rejuvenating in and of themselves, is how I look at wisdom. I just look at wisdom as, I created what's called the Ageless Future Operating System, and that's what my new book is all based around. But there's 4 steps to it, and the final step is rejuvenation. And rejuvenation means when you are reflective on your day, reflective on your past in a way that you transform the energy of your past so that it informs your future. And I think nobody did it better than maybe the Stoics. Some of the philosophy, like in the Tao Te Ching, is really powerful. The Bible, the stories in the Bible are really profound, but it does take a deeper understanding. So don't give up on the biblical stuff for those of you who are reading it. But the Tao Te Ching, I find, is just hits. You can just read a verse and it's just like, oh, that makes sense. And so I think wisdom is when you can rejuvenate yourself and make yourself young again every single day. So, I have patients in their 80s and 90s, and their eyes, they look like they're teenagers. They're so damn excited about life, and that's wisdom.
That is so interesting, because yesterday I went for an eye checkup, and my ophthalmologist, she was like, "You have young eyes," and I said, "Well, thank you." So it's just interesting that idea of youthfulness. And I've always put in my mind, it's like the older that I get, chronologically, I imagine myself, the younger I become physically. It's just this mental model that I play with in my head. Where does the mind come into this? Because you mentioned this to begin with, and the power of visualization. And I want to tie this back into the Ageless Future OS, because you mentioned there are 4 steps. There's a process here.
Yeah.
What are the steps, and what are the processes? What are the steps in the process?
Yeah.
Within the operating system?
Well, if you go back to visualization, this is where look at your body right now, and just everybody can do this. Just do a quick physical check-in. And one of my big policies is a no pain policy. It's just not, as you know, more better than most. When you have pain in your body, it limits your ability to think into a bigger future, because when you've had pain, there's one thing that you can focus on when it's severe enough, and that's the pain. And so what I realize is if you can have a pain-free future, then you're removing the biggest threat that exists to your ability to be alive, because the attention that we have that's the big currency. And all social media platforms, they want your attention. Anything you're consuming, James and I, we want your attention. We want you to listen to this because we feel like it maybe could help. But at the end of the day, if pain is overriding that, then it's going to be really hard to learn new things. And so the reason I created this body operating system is the first step is clarity. And so just like if you want to have a vision in life, you've got to really get clear on where you want to go. And so step one is just clarity. Clarity. Where do you have pain? What kind of activities do you want to be enjoying in the next year, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? What do you want to do now that like the Fitness 50 at age 100 tool I made for Dan? It's like, okay, he asked me, Dan Sullivan, he's like 80 years old now, but he said, Reagan, what are the activities that a healthy and fit 100-year-old would want to be doing that a fit 50-year-old can do? And so then I created those 11 benchmarks. But if you get clear on what you want to have your future look like, then you can start building it. And that's where step number 2 is diagnose. And the diagnostics these days are so exciting because, like you and I were talking about before the show started, is now my clients, we're training them, we're creating these AI agents that are, basically it's a repository of all their health data. You can run your blood labs through any of the AI platforms, and it's going to give you a much better summary than your doctor. And I've spent thousands of hours reviewing blood labs, probably 30,000 hours. I mean, if you look back, and helping my clients interpret it. And now we have a Reagan bot that we've been working on for about 2.5 years. And it can get all the data right there so that I can focus on the real levers that are going to change things, like the things that activate wisdom, the things that activate your personality, your Shen, the things that help you tap into the rejuvenation. But the diagnostics are really important because like I mentioned, discovering that somebody had an artery that was at least 85% occluded, go get it checked out, that prevented a heart attack. And so these diagnostics are really important because it can take you out of the game. So we clarify, and then we see, in the clarity, yes, there's some medical history so that we can understand what diagnostic tests are going to be most effective right now. And then once we get the diagnostics, then that data is how we can predict. So prediction is the third phase in this, because we want to be able to predict your future. And I don't say that like in a crystal ball sense. I just say, like, if you make these changes and here's some interventions that will lead you down that road that you want to go on. And because medicine in the past has all been, let's get a diagnosis and then let's manage the disease. Once we've got the diagnosis, the doctors are rubbing their hands together. Now we can do the treatment. And the treatment is not a cure. It's not a reversal. It's not regeneration. All of our treatments in the prediction model are, how are we going to get you younger next year than you are this year? And what are the chief components? Because there's 6 levels of fitness. And it's not just physical fitness. It's not just like your financial fitness. Those are 2 really powerful ones, but you've got to look at all the different aspects in this predictive model. And then we go to the rejuvenation, which is, all right, what are you going to be doing every day to rejuvenate yourself and to make yourself feel young again and make yourself feel whole? And I don't know about you, but I've spent a lot of my life forgetting the rejuvenation part. So it's more of it's the system that I realize is the most important. One of my oldest clients, his name's Eldon, Eldon used to come into the office, and he was 100, 101, 102 when he passed, and he'd bring one of his sons with him. He had 132 total grandkids, great-grandkids, and his
Wow.
kids. And he'd always say, you know, Reagan, aging isn't for sissies, but it beats the alternative. and so, but it was so great seeing him because every day he did something rejuvenating. You know, he was, he was big in the LDS faith in Utah. He also had this deep relationship with all of his kids, his grandkids. He'd write them a lot of letters, share his wisdom. But he was rejuvenating himself every day, and he died fast when it was his time to go. It wasn't the 10-year, that decade of death where you're just waiting to be recycled. He actually lived fully until his very last days.
See, that's a really great point, and it reminds me of my father-in-law who passed this past August, and he was an entrepreneur. He lived the American dream. He came over here from Syria and Lebanon in the 1950s, and really just he had a big vision. I mean, that idea, coming back to clarity, like he knew he wanted to do something amazing, and the power of this man's mind was absolutely incredible. But there was also the power of positive thinking too, which is where someone had asked me, because I had asked them, I said, well, tell me something good. What's going well for you? And they're like, it's an interesting question. Where did you pick that up from? And it wasn't until I was asked the question that it made me pause and think. I was like, I picked it up from my father-in-law, because every time that I would see him and I would sit down at the table, he was like, James Robert, tell me something good. Tell me something. And it was just because he was very mindful of that piece. And he too, he went fast right at the very end. It was not this long, drawn out experience, but he lived a very full, rich, meaningful life. And I think about like these four, points of clarity: diagnostic, prediction, and then rejuvenation. Let's double click on rejuvenation, because you mentioned something that I think is very important for those watching and listening, specifically for busy entrepreneurs. It's the daily habits. It's the daily commitments. The first three steps I understand, but it's the making the investment of time, intention, attention for that matter,
Yeah.
energy management. What would you recommend someone watching or listening, something small they can do to rejuvenate themselves daily? Because a lot of it is habit, it is behavior. And sometimes we might have to shift, transform those behaviors and habits to establish a new routine.
The number one way to rejuvenate yourself is to focus on sleep hygiene. So when the end of the night comes, and if you need to, set an alarm on your phone as far as when you need to get in bed and go to sleep. And so an hour before you go to bed, it's a really good time to dim your lights, get rid of any electronics, actually have deep conversations, have some questions. We have these question cards in our living room, and so at night we used to get the kids when they're here, and they would pull up random cards, because when mom or dad are asking the questions, they're like, okay, is this loaded? Like, why are they asking me that? But when it's just a general cards, some of the questions may be as simple as, when was the first time you felt love? Or when was what was your first pet? And why did you like that pet? And so then it just creates some nice dialogue. So, I would put a ritual together at night where you actually make time to connect with the humans you care about most. And it's a good time to make love. If you're into that, I certainly am. That hour before bed, it's like, man, there's nothing better. You could be doing all the oxytocin. It reframes your nervous system, just helps you feel that deeper sense of connection and love. It's a great time to do that. It's also a really nice time to reflect back on the question that you asked at the beginning of the show, is like, what's good? What's good? What's the cool things going on in your life now, personally and professionally? Just ask yourself that question at night too. And if you live alone, it's not a problem. It's just go back and journal about your day. Just think about it. And those are some ways, that's probably the number one way that you can rejuvenate. And then you sleep deeper, and then as you're in bed at night, you drop into this beautiful state of deep sleep. If you can get to bed before midnight, for most of you, I know there's some chronotypes that, you may need to be a night owl, and that's fine. But for most of us, if you can fall asleep before 10, you're going to get this like hour and a half to 2 hours of deep sleep. And that's where the real rejuvenation takes place. And in Eastern philosophy, what they say happens at night is part of your soul called the Hun protects your body so that your Shen can go back to heaven and get replenished and capture the wisdom that you need for the next day. And so I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have any studies to back it up, but hopefully it motivates you to get to bed a little sooner so you can take a trip to heaven. And then as the night goes on, then you drop into these cycles of sleep where you're going into these REM cycles. And the REM cycles, for men, you're going to have erections multiple times throughout the night. And that your erection, when you wake up with an erection, it's a really good sign of having good cardiovascular health. And you can even trace it. You can put devices on your penis so you can see how frequently you're getting erections at night. And you want to have a good couple dozen of these throughout the night, which sounds kind of interesting, but it's rejuvenating your sexual organ. And in that process, you're rejuvenating your cardiovascular system, and that REM sleep is how your brain can start detoxifying from all the events from the day before. It's how we process information. It's how we categorize things. And your brain is actually more busy when you're asleep than when you're awake. So this number one rejuvenation process, your operating system of your brain, sleep is actually the only way, and there's no way of circumventing it. We still don't know. I mean, the sleep is like, we know as much about sleep as we do about the bottom of the ocean. It's a deep world inside there.
I was about to say the sleep and the benefits for the mind, the body, the soul. I really appreciate the way that you unpacked and framed that, because it is, I think, it was something that I undervalued early on in my entrepreneurial journey, thinking that, I'm going to hack time and you can sleep when you're dead kind of a philosophy. Like that was the stupidest, silliest belief. And the reason I framed it as a belief, because beliefs are what drive our behaviors. Yeah. And when you're talking about this rejuvenation and the daily commitments and the daily habits, if we're going to establish a new behavior that we repeat, which becomes the new habit that leads to the predictable future, perhaps we really just need to rethink our own beliefs. Like, why did I believe that? Well, I believed it because I thought that's what was going to get me ahead. And I thought I'm going to have to hustle harder to beat everyone else. And it was this competitive mindset, which is good up to a point until it becomes an Achilles heel. And then when it's the Achilles heel, that's what's going to take you down. It's what's going to hurt you. But as you have shared today, there's a lot of opportunity to gain awareness, to gain clarity, to diagnose, to get a plan that creates a predictable future, and then to rejuvenate ourselves daily as entrepreneurs. For someone who is watching and listening, they want to go deeper, as you mentioned. This, sleep, that's unexplored. So that's as deep as the ocean. We're just starting to unpack that, and we've just scratched the surface here. Where can someone go get copies of your book, connect with you, listen to your podcast, because you do have such great, unique wisdom that you are sharing as well, that I want to ensure that others have access to level up their mind and their business?
Well, I appreciate that. And you can go to agelessfuture.com, and we'll provide a link for people who are interested in going deeper in diagnostics. So we provided a discount on our blood labs. You'll meet with one of our functional medicine doctors. I've got a phenomenal team, a world-class team, and all my docs are trained in functional medicine. That's kind of my wheelhouse, is bringing in two medical worlds. So we're East-West Health, and so what we've done is we've made East-West one word. So you don't need to separate the science from the wisdom, or the spirit from the body anymore. It's like this is an integrated whole, and so while we're not like a super esoteric company, we do value those esoteric experiences, and we do help you go deeper. So yeah, that agelessfuture.com will help get you access to myself, the team, and we'll help get you through the Ageless Future operating system.
Connect with Reagan, learn with Reagan. He will guide you through and towards and beyond an ageless future. Reagan, thanks for joining me for another episode of Level Up Business Podcast. This has been such a pleasure and a lot of fun today.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And as you continue down your journey of growth as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of change, of course, that is happening in the age of AI. But you don't have to do it alone. Grab a copy of my best-selling book, Banking on Change, and it will provide a path forward beyond the chaos and the complexity that I think many are feeling right now. Text me 832-240-1922. And I will text you a copy of Banking on Change so that you can level up your mind, you can level up your marketing, you can level up your sales so that you can level up your business and your life.